Welcome everybody. I am Ruxana Zia from the Center of Learning and Teaching at the campus. Fatma, our education developer, she went through the netiquettes for you, and Zarek will look at the chat and share the questions with our resource person after the PowerPoint presentation is over. The purpose of the series, as you know well by now, is to establish a collaborative community of scholars with peer sharing and learning. The free part of the online course is to provide wider access to national and international scholars to foster knowledge equity across, the two international and national participants. But the knowledge equity part is aptly demonstrated by our experts who have generously given of their time and energy. Over the years, we have developed this course to synchronize with the researcher development framework by Vijay, as you saw in the video. And this framework was reconfigured in 2025. And so at present, our 24 webinars provide a strong coverage of the domains related to researcher values, behavior, research methods, digital literacy, ethical and responsible research, scholarly communication, publication, and collaborative research culture. It offers a limited coverage, though, of funding and finance, formal project management, supervision and people management, coaching and mentoring, and research commercialization. These are areas that have been recently been added to the framework, and we do not cover them as much in detail in this course. This course honors our FCC values of service to the community. For this webinar, Writing and Publishing for Social Sciences, we had some 8,000 registrations from 400 international and 230 national universities from 93 countries. Thank you for your confidence in us. For today, we have Enrique Oracion, an adjunct professor of anthropology and sociology from Silliman University, Philippines. And as you told me, Enrique, and perhaps you could tell our audience when you start the session, was about the typhoon alert in your area. He has served as a research director prior to his retirement. He holds an AB and MA in sociology from Silliman and a PhD in anthropology from the University of San Carlos, Philippines. He has also served as a United Board Fellow at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and Baylor University, Texas. He is a regional awardee for social sciences under the Philippine Commission on Higher Education, Research and Publications Award. So you're just the right person for this webinar. He teaches social science research methods, both quantitative and qualitative, and advocates for integrated scholarship with service learning. That's a great area. Enrique, something that I believe in as one of the key purposes in higher education is to connect us within students the spirit of service learning. So you come with a very well-rounded background that you bring to your presentation. Over to you, Enrique. Unmute yourself, Enrique, if you could unmute. You're muted.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Jaya.
Yeah,
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to some.
yeah.
And welcome to this session. But first of all, I'd like to thank the Foreman Christian College Center for Learning and Teaching for the invitation to be one of the resource persons in this webinar on research methodology course 2026. in case we're going to have problem later on as to uh sorry, in case we're going to have problem later on, like I'll be disconnected, it's because right now uh classes are canceled here in the part of Negros Island where Silliman University is situated. There are no classes, and in case anytime uh, there would be brown out, I may be cut off, but certainly I'm going to make this fast, and we're going to have more discussion.
Yeah,
So
you
indeed,
call it brownout, Enrique. We call it
yeah.
blackout
Oh,
in our
blackout.
part of the world. So
It's
you have a
complete.
typhoon alert in your
Yeah,
area, and I think
yeah,
that is why.
typhoon. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Typhoon Bobby, which is
yeah,
now
okay.
really felt in some parts of the
Okay.
island of Negros. But anyway, it is my pleasure to share with you what experiences I have in writing and publishing research manuscripts. Certainly, I am not a self-made researcher, but a product of mentoring as well, no, by several people, from my master's thesis advisor to my dissertation advisor, up to the point that I got a name and being invited by some experts also to collaborate with them, particularly that you know I'm recognized as an expert on my own field in anthropology and sociology. So I collaborated with several researchers, both local and foreign, and that expanded my horizons in research focus and methodology. So I could also work with those in the natural sciences, and it's an opportunity indeed. No, it's an opportunity indeed to be working with them, and that opened my eyes that research is not just a monopoly of one discipline. So I would admit that I am an interdisciplinary researcher, and this allows me to work well with some other researchers from other disciplines, and that's, I think, one very important characteristic of a researcher, to be able to appreciate what others are doing. Even though our focus right now is social sciences, I could very well also connect with the other disciplines. So that's without hesitation, I accepted the invitation to talk before this body in this session particularly. And I have good reasons for doing this one. No? And that is to pay forward what I learned from researchers before me. And I think this would goes with you well, no? Your presence right now here is an indication that you have such desire, no? So you have that goal to learn also something from this event. No? So to start with, I'm using the Parsonian's theory of action to explain or to direct our discussion, no? That for every researcher we have this oh sorry, we have this desire, no? We have this desire to be able to publish, and that's our goal, you know? So we have that motive, we have that desire to publish, and we look for ways by which you can do that. And doing so, however, there are things that may either hinder or facilitate uh, achieving what's the goal. You know? So I have here the elements of action to examine first. That every action has a doer. So each one of us uh, is the actor, in this business of researching and publishing. And as a doer, we have reasons now for doing so. And this reason is, of course, to get the goal. And the goal is to be able to publish eventually. And that goal drives us more to learn. No? And as I've mentioned earlier, as a doer, we're not alone. There are people around us that help facilitate what we're doing, or perhaps becomes also a problem on pursuing what we desire to achieve. And all of this determines success. And that's what I mean here, success in publishing. Earlier, I have heard the word mindset. So the whole idea actually is going into research is uh, requires a change in mindset. How do we proceed? Or how do we look into research? Is it something difficult? Is something easy? Or is something challenging? Or something that we can just get rid of without doing so? But being in the higher education institutions, we're always expected. We're always expected to uh, research and publish together with our main function of teaching. And as mentioned earlier, we have also that you know, mandate to go into extension works. That's why, as mentioned by Dr. Zia earlier, I'm into integrated scholarship. And that means putting all these three together and to achieve the desired results that benefit not only the classroom, not only the students, but the community as well. And most especially, our desire to be of service to others. But these are the realities in research and publishing environment. We have these issues on poor capacity to do so, and oftentimes the work are questions are being questioned in terms of the credibility because of that poor capacity of researching and publishing, and because of that, there's a poor utilization of what we have published, and the that that poor utilization eventually make people think, so why would I go into research, particularly if there would be no incentives for doing so and for doing what is really that quality research expected of many. So these are issues, and we cannot just explain this one as the lack of motivation, no, or the lack of the desire. There are challenges. There are challenges that are internal or external. So, in relation to our work as a teacher, uh, many are complaining, particularly here in our case, that we have too much workload. We have teaching overloads, and we have also administrative tasks that prevent us from going into serious research. And for those who are not capable, of course, they always are challenged by the poor research quality that are produced. And the resources are also limited in terms of access to quality literature. And because of that push really to publish, some tend to go into unethical research practice or having someone work or write papers for them. And that leads to another issue about how to correct that and how to address the issue of plagiarism. And overall, there is that challenge also of how to overcome predatory publication and cost. These are results of that pressure again, to publish, and so some are paying journals that are not legitimate or journals that are poor quality, but they could publish easily. Well, of course, these things are so complex an issue that we could not just address one of these. These are all connected, and this requires an integrated approach on how really we could promote research and publishing in higher education institutions. But why are we really interested? Why are we really in pursuit for research and publication? I would consider two things here: the higher level reason and the personal reason for doing so. Now, the higher level would be the desire to really publish something that tests a theory or produce a theory. And that's very important in our teaching career. For those who are into community works, we research because we would like to identify what are the needs of the community, as well as design an intervention based on the results of this assessment of what the community needs. And at the end of the project, we have to evaluate that. And that's also research so that we would know how effective we are. And in the end, we're able to produce, some policies that would enhance further what we're doing in the community. So there are really high-level reasons why we're doing research, and particularly these are connected to our teaching tasks as well as community engagement tasks. Personally, we go into research because it's part of our profession. We have to grow. We have to manifest that kind of scholarship in research, and there are some economic reasons as well. And that, you know, being able to publish means promotion in rank. For many institutions, one of the criteria for promotion is the number of publications or even the number of citations earned. And for the institution, it's part of program accreditation. So teachers are required to research because their programs are being accredited, and the accreditation measured how many percent of the teachers are publishing, or how many articles are being produced per year. And overall, that means going into research as a form of institutional compliance. It's part uh, of how an institution is being monitored and being evaluated by the national government, or some organizations that supported a particular school. And in this way, we always look for scholarly journals, no? Where we could publish. And publishing in scholarly journals is not that easy. So oftentimes, I would say that writing proposal seems to be a problem, seems to be difficult. After doing so, the next question now is implementing it and producing the report. And the third level would be having it published. And that's another level of challenge. But certainly, if you know what we're doing, and if you are really have that mindset of pursuing what we have started, we could really achieve that one. You know? So this is where we publish. So for serious works, for serious publications, it's with scholarly journals. We're popularizing what we have research on and the results that we have. We use print mass media or social media and digital platform. But really, for us in the academy, we are we are measured in terms of how many citations we have with scholarly journals. Personally, I was into, or I am still into research. As I mentioned earlier, it's not because I just happened to know research and work through it and have achieved this now. I really started with some mentors, no? So I have data for my master's thesis, which I used to publish with the advice of my mentor at the time. So I think, and that's 1983. We only show that I was 22 years old at the time. That was my first publication. That was really an inspiration on my part now, and to pursue further serious research. So I have my other publications which are part of my doctoral requirements, and the data, of course, is coming from the previous research works I have. Eventually, I learned more through collaborative research. But then eventually, I got some consultancy work where I could publish it. Now, I had mentioned this to you earlier, sharing to you the idea that I'm not a self-made person or a researcher, but rather a product of the mentoring of others, of working with others, of collaborating with other experts. So I would know then the process and be able to expand my horizons in the field of research. Publishing, as I've mentioned, is another very, very difficult task, particularly if you do not know where to start, where to go, and how you're going to proceed. So we always start, after producing a research paper, we always start with the search for the appropriate journal where we could publish our work. And so these are some tips on doing so. We have to look for journals that are aligned, no, with our work. So we have to see who are the targets of these particular journals. Then we look also into the reputation of the journal. Reputation of the journal would tell also how many researchers or how many are citing the articles in this journal. And this number three is sometimes confusing because when they say open access, we thought that it's free to publish in this journal. So there are two ways of looking at open access journal. Open access journal are free for those who would like to read those journals or articles in those journals. But usually, the author pays what we call APC, or article processing fee. But there's another way of reading open access. These are journals that are free to readers, but the authors are also free to publish. And these are usually institutional journals like universities and so on, and other organizations. So I'm showing you here examples. Now, here in the Philippines, we have the Philippine Sociological Review is open to any authors to publish their works in sociology or anthropology and so on. Then we have the Asia Pacific Social Science Review, which is published by the La Salle University, one of the uh, high level research universities in the Philippines. And here we have also the Recoletos Multidisciplinary Research Journal. These are open access, and publishing here is also free. So don't be confused about the notion. No? So for journals that operates a business, they have to ask for payment uh, or APC because of the cost of processing the article until it's going to be published. Then we have to consider also the indexing status of the journal. Here in the Philippines, we are we're so after the two prominent databases or indexing groups, no? The Web of Science and Scopus, because the Commission on Higher Education expect us to publish in this journal because of the wider scope of their databases. So that's it, no? And to encourage us to publish in these journals, we have institutions like here at Silliman. We're given cash incentives for publishing in Scopus or Web of Science. Then we have to consider also the review process, how long the review process would take place, especially if we are in a hurry to have our papers to be published, but not in a hurry also that you have to pay for a very short review process. And usually that's the case of predatory journals. Then next is the ethical policies of the journal. Then we look into the editorial board composition, or what's the qualification of those who are in the editorial board, and that could be found in the front back cover of a journal. And there's where you could find also their qualification, the editorial quality, the processes being done, and of course, our rights, copyrights of this journal. Usually, we look for journals that we also own the rights to what we have published. So these are, I think, very important considerations when we select for a particular journal where we're going to publish, assuming that we have already a ready manuscript for submission. So my focus in this session is about social science publication. So for those who are not in the social sciences, this would be an opportunity also for you to see what makes an article of social science, no? Or what makes a journal for the social sciences. It's a broad concept, actually. In fact, I would always say that anything that touches about humans, that's social science. Even health is a social science. No? So, what's the research focus of social sciences? It's human behavior, cultures, and societal structures and dynamics. And the goal, usually, for this kind of research is to examine relationships, patterns, meanings, and social mechanisms. But take note that these are always context dependent. The findings may not be applied to all because of the diversity of cultures people are in. No? So we have to always consider the context of that particular research published in a particular journal. Then, in terms of data quality, take note that social sciences is into methodological pluralism. It's not only focused on statistical data from social surveys, but also consider rigid analysis of textual data. So in other words, the quality of data depends really on how the data are being collected, and social sciences are into quantitative research, qualitative research, for that matter. And to add more complication of that, what's getting popular now is the mixed method research. And I think that's one good area for discussion also in some other sessions. In social science research, the researcher, depending on the design, however, the researcher play a very complex role. First, a very objective analyst, and in another kind of paper, the researcher is an embedded or a collocated participant of a social process. So I'm talking here about qualitative research. And when we talk about qualitative research, um, it's so wide also choices that we could,
There's a problem with your connection, Enrique. So perhaps its net connection seems to be a bit tricky. So we'll wait for you to come back, or maybe you need to refresh your connection. Yeah. Enrique has sort of, yeah, we're back again.
yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you.
sorry,
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay. You alerted us before time, so we are good to go. We have
Yeah,
time.
I'll go back.
Yeah, share your slides again, please.
Issue. Okay, I'm back.
Thank you.
Sorry, sorry.
No, no,
Okay.
that's fine. In an age of technology, we are ready for all the glitches in our
Okay.
participants. Yeah.
So the ultimate output for social
If
science
you could,
research.
sorry, Enrique, if you could take your slide to where you were, we are
Oh, this
seeing the
one.
front. Yeah, we are seeing
Is
the
this the?
front.
You're seeing the one that I have?
You see, we are seeing the front page and it's not on the slideshow either. So
Uh,
you need to go to the page you were, I think it's way down, and to put on your slideshow.
yeah, I'll stop first and then.
Yeah, please. That's okay.
How about this one?
Uh,
That one?
yeah, this is where you were. Yeah,
Yeah, this is where I ended last time.
yeah,
So I'm now talking about the ultimate output now. So what's the
yeah.
use of social science research? It's always, designed to improve quality of life. And when you talk improving quality of life, that the results are often used to inform public policies and for designing projects or in intervention that would lead to an improvement in the quality of life of people. Um, Here I would show to you some of my works. As I've said, I'm into interdisciplinary work, and I'm also into multi-methodological design. So I could do quantitative research, and I could also do qualitative research, and then I could also do mixed method research. Now I'm showing this to you because I would like to highlight the idea that being into the social sciences, we have to be adaptable, flexible, and we have to appreciate what other fields are doing. No? Well, sometimes working with others, and then you are so focused in your own methodological bias, it seems to be very difficult. Um, Modesty aside, I could always say that I could very well adjust to other disciplines as well as to the kind of perspective we have. It's because I'm exposed to different kinds of methods. So let's go now to the focus of this. After giving you all this context, now let's go into the focus of this session before everything would be cut by the blackout. When we talk about forms, we're looking into the external quality of the paper. And when you talk about papers, in terms of forms, it could be original research, it could be systematic review, it could be policy paper or brief communication. All of these are product of research. And these are found in the guidelines to authors of a journal. In fact, every journal would always specify the style, the word count limits, the margin sizes, the citation styles, and font requirements when you submit your manuscript. So, meaning if you could not comply with those requirements, you have a problem. And the problem is the initial or the immediate refusal or rejection of your paper. So let me focus on original research because the rest are actually products of original research. So this is the flow. So when you talk about original research, this serves as raw materials, the primary source of new knowledge, and this is the product of what you're doing in the field, what you're analyzing, and what you're writing. So that's original research. Systematic review is a product of several original research that are put together by the author, and then this author evaluates a number of these original research focusing on a topic that this author would like to pursue. But often there's a problem here in doing systematic review, especially if there could be no uniformity in the methodology and so on. So it's really a complicated thing. But they have designed a methodology for schematic review actually, and that's something that is that's a developing method in research and in writing. Then we have policy paper. Policy papers are intended to influence, of course, authorities or leaders, no, who are expected to act based on the data or based on the recommendations. And policy paper are products of original research. But there's another one, which we call brief communication. These are products of original research, but these are immediately published, but in a shorter version because you'd like to reach out to the audience, no? And show the significant results of the study. In other words, it being designed that it could easily influence or inform readers about that particular study. So it may be less technical compared to original research. Here, I'd like to show you an example that I did a study on healthcare among older persons, and then eventually I produce a policy brief, and policy brief is being shared to authorities or government agencies and private organizations interested in assisting older persons. Uh, in a journal, as I mentioned earlier, you could find there the guide to authors, and we always have to read the guide to authors before submitting our manuscript. Meaning, you might be writing a manuscript in your own style or your own institution style, but by the time you're going to submit to a journal, you have to fit to the journal's style uh, or format that is expected for submission. No? And the detail is there. I don't have to go into what are expected, but as I mentioned earlier, there are requirements. Every journal asks from authors to submit a manuscript for them for publication. So don't expect that all journals have the same expectations. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, even font size, even the font types, and the allowed word count is also being strictly imposed. Now let's go to the structure. When we talk about the structure of a manuscript, we look into the internal organization. So I had mentioned earlier, we're talking about the research article, original article. And so that's a format, that's the form. Now we look into the structure. The structure talks about the logical progression of ideas, and that is also referring to how the authors build their arguments. So many journals, and this is something, no? Many journals follow IMRAD. IMRAD stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, Discussion, and Conclusion. Meaning uh, very specific into to its flow. No? Introduction, have background, literature review, so on. Then methods, where you have the research design, setting, samples, tool, data gathering and analysis, then ethical considerations, and you have results, presentation, text, and so on, and up to conclusion. uh, Thesis and dissertations are like this also. However, they're so detailed that sometimes it's so difficult for them to automatically submit it for publication because journals would accept that. Journals would require them to restructure it following MRAD. And here's the comparison I made, no? Looking into thesis or dissertation format or chapter format, no? And MRAD. Thesis format is about 1,000, hundreds or hundreds of pages. It's also considered structurally redundant, multi-chapter. It has a very intensive literature review, but of course, what is measured here is the research capability of the candidate. And usually this is for advanced degree. But as I mentioned earlier, if you desire to publish the whole of this, it could not be accepted. It has to be transformed into EMRAD. And an EMRAD paper or manuscript is so concise and brief. It ranges from 6,000 to 10,000 uh, generally, but there are those that are lesser also. Journals ask for 400,000 to 5,000. But when I say 6,000 to 10,000, that 6,000 to 8,000 usually quantitative paper. 8,000 to 10,000 words, that's for qualitative paper. And I think it's understood why they vary in terms of word count. No? It's understood because the other one is more technical, more direct. The other one is more descriptive. So IMRAD, however, as compared to thesis, is more focused and direct. There's less redundancy, and it delivers high intensity information, and it is written uh, tailored for the specific conference or journals. Now, how do you structure a paper? This is a very important, considerations for writing. Since we are expected to be compact and concise, to be more direct, then we have to really have a guide. No, we have to have logical flow in how we write. There is that internal framework, and of course, there's that chronological path, in writing. So logical flow refers to moving from a broad to specific issue. That's why we have the introduction down to the details as to the how and where you could find the methods and the what or results, no? And back out to the bigger picture. In fact, MRAD articles could always be translated or could always be or could answer the question, what is being studied? Why this is being studied? How it was being studied? And what's the result? And the last one is, so what? No? Always in writing manuscript, the so what is very important because it's going to tell about how important then is your study. You have these results now, so what? No, but of course, going into that requires first telling what you are studying about, and that's in the introduction part. Next guide is on internal framework, making sense of items in every section of the paper, like the significance of the study in the introduction, data and results, and interpretation. So each section has its own focus. So it's not that, in the results, you now talk about significance. And in the introduction, you talk about interpreting some data. Each section have its own focus. It should not be that redundant where you're going back and forth. And here, it's very important to have that chronological path of transitioning cohesively from one to the next story or showing progression of events with the rising tension up to the highest point or climax and resolution or the conclusion. I would always consider writing manuscript for publication is just writing a story. It's writing in social sciences. I think we have to write just like we're telling a story. But the story is based on facts. The story is not based on our imagination. That there is that introduction, then we have the climax, and then we have the resolution. The introduction part is always very important. That's where we're going to excite our readers. So here is the strategy. The strategy here refers to how a manuscript is designed and written based on the guidelines of the journal to deliver the message to readers in the most efficient and effective way. And this is where the challenge is among social science writers. We are balancing hard science and humanities in data presentation, and from heavily statistical quantitative papers to deeply narrative qualitative ethnographies. And this requires us to be adaptive, in our writing. And here are some of the ways by which we could carry or bring our readers. No, first strategy would be signposting or telling where the discussion is going, and that's always found in the introductory part. Why going there and how it connects to the main thesis, and then the voice that we have. Usually, in quantitative paper, we use third person, but for qualitative, it's first person. And when we write, we should always be grounded on the concept, and these concepts have to be defined immediately in the context. And when we write, we always have to be backed up by the data, and that's for quantitative or black coat, for qualitative as proof of what we're analyzing and so on. And then enticing interest or highlighting in the introduction section the issue or problem, the gaps in the past research, and the hook or how the gaps be addressed to catch attention or like the paper. Here are some of the strategies for writing the sections of the paper. No, so in the title, it's you have to show the variables or the concepts already for the people, a place. Then we have the abstract. The abstract is, of course, written only after you have finished writing the whole paper. Sorry. Then we have the introduction. It's the pitch where we highlight the problem gap and catch interest. The literature review where we synthesize logically. We arrange the data or the information by theme and or argument. Then in methods, we describe clearly the sampling and its bias, data gathering and analysis. Then the results, we only present here the raw data from deep interpretations. Uh, in the discussion, we explain the results with the theory or create and compare with reviewed literature. And finally, in the closure, we synthesize main points and the broader significance. So it's what we said earlier about so what after you have done the study. So these are the format. I don't have to go to the details of this. I'm just showing you here that in writing for manuscripts and social sciences, we follow this IMRAD format. The literature review could be a separate section. It could also be integrated in the introduction. To visualize the connections of sections in IMRAD, we follow this flow. So we have the context, and this is the background, the rationale for doing so in this study. Then we establish the gaps, which become the basis for the research questions. If our study is quantitative, we have framework of the study and we have hypothesis. And then we go to the methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Sorry. So IMRAD, however, may not exactly be the labels, no, in some journals. So this is the common thing we could find in some journals, but some journals do not carry results or discussion. They have other terms, and you can do that. Again, that's dependent upon the journal where you're going to submit your paper. So what are the key lessons here when you're going to submit? You have to consider the form expected by the journal. We must conform to the guidelines to authors, publisher policies, and the discipline where you are in. This is the stage where we have the technical review. When you submit and you do not follow the form, it might be rejected at that level. And the next one is the structure. That's why in this session we're talking about the form and the structure, because the structure is another consideration also for accepting or rejecting. If the presentation is confusing and there's illogical presentation of ideas, flawed methods, that would mean rejection by experts, and that is during content review. What I'm saying, therefore, is that there are two levels in accepting or rejecting your manuscript. First is technical review. If you do not pass in technical review, you cannot go to the next level. So what would be the review outcome? So depending on the results of the review, these are the outcomes. Accepted without revision, accepted with minor revisions, accepted with major revisions. And the worst is rejected without allowance of resubmission. If you got the first three, that's okay. No, that means you still have a chance, but you have to work hard for it. But if you got rejection, it's not going to be the end or the death of the manuscript. You have to learn from the comments, fix it accordingly, and submit that to another journal. Remember, there are several journals, and it so happened at that time your paper may not be fitting for that particular journal. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. I hope I was able, in a very capsulized manner, I was able to show you how you're going to write your paper, your manuscript, submit it, and then work on it. But the very important consideration in our mindset as a researcher, think that your work is always the best and there's always a way to improve it if others have read what your work is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. And you really went into detail trying to give different types of, the challenges to what types of writing you are to do. My question, I would start with something. IMRAD was something new for me as well. Would IMRAD that you cite be, about research and development, would that be different for each university, or is that a standard model that you offer for IMRAD?
Yeah, that's a good point. Uh, it's actually a generic thing.
Okay.
In fact, I said it's also found in the way we write our thesis or dissertation. We always have
Yeah.
introduction, we always have the method, we have the results, we have the discussion, and we have the conclusion.
Yeah.
So it's a generic thing. So it's
Okay.
overall. Yeah.
Okay. So why would it be different to another publication format or progression? I mean, does IMRAD is the basic model that you are saying, and then you go by what every institution says or something like that? I mean,
Yeah, but
every institution or every journal actually might
yeah,
be offering.
yeah. Every journal have their own structure. Uh, so what we need is simply to modify the generic one to fit to that journal's structure. I think it's not going to take much time because you have the essence already of the paper. So it's just a matter of reformatting it based on the structure required by the journal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Questions, Zarek, please.
The first question we have is from Dr. Muhammad Naeem Server, who's joining us from University of Education. He asks, how can social science authors maintain theoretical depth and methodological transparency while also meeting journals' increasing demands for concise manuscripts?
Uh, the first part, how, is about how.
But how can sorry, I'll just repeat the question. How can social
Yeah.
science authors maintain theoretical depth and methodological transparency while also maintaining journals' increasing demand for concise manuscripts?
Oh yeah, that's it. It's a big challenge, really. I think that depends on the author, how the author would really, you know, compact, turn into a more compact presentation, the theoretical part and the methodological. So yeah, it could be done, but of course that depends on how the author prioritize what particular aspects of the theoretical framework or the methodological section that uh, have to be reduced or have to be synthesized so that we could meet the word count expectation of every journal. We don't have the liberty, really. If you're going to publish publish in a journal, we have to work with the requirements of the journal. But it's possible, sir. It's possible.
The next question we
Next.
have is from Dr. Ehsan Farooq, who is joining us from Rifa University. He asks, the mindset of publish or perish forces researchers to focus on the number and volume of submissions rather than the quality of those submissions. So, how can early career researchers balance this pressure to publish quickly with the desire to maintain high research quality?
Again, it's a mindset, no? It's a mindset. I could produce a lot, but it might be of poor quality. It might be a duplication of what had been written. Uh, Meaning, if I would really pursue for a quality paper, then I have to devote on that. I don't have to be pressured by publisher perish. Uh, our reputation is always anchored on the idea that you have produced a very good paper, and it's again, it's a personal thing. It's a personal decision. Uh, every author uh have a control of how he is going to or she's going to pursue and satisfy that requirement of our institution, because we're required to publish, really. uh, and that's a challenge. In fact, I had shown that to you earlier. Because of that publisher perish, some go to predatory journals or even plagiarize and so on. So it's really a matter of personal conviction. Yeah. Next,
And he
please.
also asks, if you have to break down massive, long duration or multiple projects into small, actionable daily writing tasks, that remains an obstacle. So, what would you recommend as a strategy to break down a large research work into small writing goals?
Oh yeah, that's one thing. No, I always tell my students in research to focus on particular variables on a very large project. You cannot put everything together. You have to focus on a particular variables and work on it. Yeah.
The next
Okay.
question is from Batul Khwaber, who's joining us from SMBBMU in Larkana. She asks, how can novice researchers increase their chances of publishing their first paper in a reputable journal?
I got that experience too. No, I had to work with experts. I have to work with well-published authors. Uh, and eventually I have to learn from their techniques. So my first Scopus index, I mean, my first article published in an Scopus index journal was a collaboration with really, really very good authors or researchers and foreigners. No? So we don't have to refuse invitation from foreigners like, oh, they're just going to make use of us. No, let's make use of them, learn from them, and eventually graduate from that. And more would follow until finally you're able to establish your name and then share what you learned among local researchers also.
The next question has been mentioned by a lot of participants, and it is, what are some of the most common reasons or methodological weaknesses that lead to a manuscript being rejected before peer review?
One is first. Remember, I was talking about. I mean, assuming that the paper is already accepted because the paper follows the form being required by a journal. The second now is the content review. Usually, the problem is the problem. Not very clear problem. Uh, no clear focus. Uh, in terms of relevance, not relevant topic. In terms of methodology, the sample is not enough. In terms of analysis, it's not the appropriate analysis. So it could be any part of the manuscript could be problematic. But usually when I review papers, I look first into the problem, the research question, and then the method, if it is appropriate. So what's very important is the connection of all these sections, the coherence and the appropriateness of the technique of analyzing and the technique of gathering data. But remember, we have quantitative and qualitative. They are being judged differently, except when a quantitative paper is being judged by a qualitative reviewer or the other way around, no? Person who have different framework of analysis or framework of viewing things, we have a different what do you call this one, judgment. But the common problem really is about the topic, about the problem.
The next question is again coming to us from a lot of participants who ask, if a researcher is not affiliated with any institute or if they don't have an institutional email address, how do they publish their paper as an independent scholar?
I I don't think institutional affiliation is a requirement really in publishing. It, it's not, no, it's not. Mm, it's for me. I think it's the paper, the manuscript that's being submitted and being reviewed that matters. It's not the affiliation, unless the journal requires that, no, that there is that institutional affiliation. Okay, next.
Zarek, do we have a question? I can't hear you, Zarek.
Oh, thank
Ma'am,
you,
this was the last
thank you
question.
for
A
all
lot
those
of the questions
questions.
have been
They're very
addressed.
interesting.
Okay. Zarek, did you saying that there are no more questions?
Yes, ma'am, a lot of them have already been addressed.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Enrique. I
Yeah.
think you really went into the detail of all, and I really liked your idea of having a framework for the doer and the goal and the context. And those are the three most important things when you start a research. Is like who's going to do what and what is it that you're going to do it and what's the context. And then, of course, the methodology kicks in. Methodology is something very related to your question, and it actually comes out of how you're going to frame your question. And I think people don't understand that there is no one writing style in research. Research is about being very disciplinary. It's not the discipline in terms of subject discipline, it's the strict discipline that you need to follow, the fitness of every step along the way. Every step matters, starting from your research question to how you frame it and then how you want to, develop your framework, how you engage with the text, and then develop a methodology and a research method to it, and then, of course, how do you pull it together? And knowing how much to do is also a crucial part. Sometimes people take on too much work, and even for a very big thesis, the problem is too large to solve. And you have to be very careful about the limitations in your research that you have to cite to make it very valid and credible, so that everybody knows what you have done and what you could not cover. And then, of course, the variable. There's so many things. And I was looking in the chat, and you were saying, what is the most important point? There's no one important point. Everything is to be done with due diligence and extreme fitness. So, Enrique, thank you so much. You really went into a lot of detail and unpacked a lot of important points for us. And thank you so much. And we'll keep bothering you every year. It so happens. Immense thanks to you. And thank you to our nearly 500 participants that stayed with us most of the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much also for this opportunity. I
Yes,
tried to collapse in 1 hour what we had been
yeah,
discussing in the classroom for several
yeah.
semesters.
Thanks,
Yeah. Thank
sessions.
you very much.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Honored to have you, Enrique. Honored. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.